Every empire begins with a whisper, not the sound of swords or cannons, but a question, soft and dangerous. What would you give for everything? In every age there were men who answered. They signed their names where others hesitated. They called it credit, investment, opportunity, but history calls it something older, a bargain. Long before Wall Street, before the word banker was spoken, merchants in Florence learned a forbidden art, how to turn faith into profit. The church forbade usury, but gold never cared who prayed, only who paid. And so the Medici rewrote the scriptures in ledgers. They built palaces beside cathedrals and funded popes who once damned them. In public they crossed themselves, in private they crossed lines. And the city that worshipped saints began to worship balance sheets. Every coin was a prayer answered, every loan a confession whispered into gold. It was said Lorenzo de' Medici could raise armies with a quill and absolution with a signature. The devil, some whispered, didn't tempt him with riches, he just offered interest. But bargains demand repayment. When Florence fell into war and plague, the same ledgers that crowned its princes became their tombstones. Debt, like sin, never dies. It only changes hands. From Florence to Augsburg, from Rome to London, the idea spread like contagion, that salvation could be purchased, that destiny could be financed, and for every new name written in gold, another name faded into the dark. This is where the modern world began, not with freedom, not with faith, but with a deal inked in shadow, a deal so old it still collects interest. After faith fractured, the world was left with silence. No altar, no absolution, only accounts. And into that silence, a new religion was born. Its God was invisible, its temples made of glass, and its miracles measured in interest. They called it credit, but its meaning was older, from the Latin credere, to believe, and believe they did. Not in saints or scripture, but in the promise that tomorrow would repay today. The bankers became high priests of probability. They turned risk into ritual and debt into devotion, each loan a prayer, each payment a confession. The markets became the new liturgy, numbers recited with the reverence once reserved for psalms. Kings no longer knelt before altars. They knelt before credit. A signature now held more power than any crown, and belief, not gold, became the foundation of empires. In Amsterdam, London, and Paris, the first stock exchanges opened like shrines to this new faith. Men gathered to trade fragments of the future, ships that had not yet sailed, fortunes not yet earned. They sold what did not exist and bought what could not be seen. And somehow, it worked. Because the miracle was not in the metal, it was in the mind. So long as people believed the system would hold, it did. Belief itself became collateral. Doubt was the only debt that could not be repaid. And so the bargain deepened. The devil no longer asked for souls, he asked for trust. And mankind, eager for progress, signed willingly. That was the true alchemy, turning faith into finance and risk into redemption. It was not evil, it was efficient, and that made it unstoppable. From the ledgers of Florence to the tickers of London, the spell had been cast, and it would echo for centuries. Soon men would no longer pray for salvation, they would trade for it, and the modern world would call it prosperity. By the dawn of the 19th century, the old merchants had given way to new masters, industrialists who did not trade gold for faith, but time for power. Smoke replaced incense, steel replaced scripture, and in the heart of this new world, money took its final form, pure energy, flowing faster than belief itself. They were called tycoons, but their empires felt closer to temples. Rockefeller in oil, Morgan in steel and credit, Rothschild in sovereign debt, each discovered the philosopher's stone of the modern age, turning scarcity into control. They did not build wealth, they engineered it. Rockefeller understood that monopoly was not greed, it was order. Morgan knew that panic could be molded like molten iron. And the Rothschilds learned that nations, like men, could be bound by invisible chains of credit. When crises came, these men did not fear them. They orchestrated them. A well-timed collapse could cleanse the market, strengthen the throne, or buy an empire for pennies. They learned the devil's truest lesson: chaos is profitable. In 1907, when the market trembled, J.P. Morgan closed his library doors. Inside, by lamplight, a handful of bankers decided the fate of America. No government, no vote, only belief, once again belief in men who claimed to command the storm. From that night came the Federal Reserve, the final cathedral of modern money. Its creed was stability, its sacrament, liquidity. But even a temple built to control fear cannot escape it forever, because fear, like faith, demands renewal. The titans died, their portraits hung in museums, their ledgers sealed in vaults. Yet their design endured, a machine that feeds on confidence, powered by doubt. The bargain had gone global, no longer signed in ink but in policy and debt, in the quiet consent of billions. And somewhere, behind the gleam of progress, the same whisper remains. What would you give for everything? Next comes the reckoning, the hidden cost of faith in the system itself, when fortunes swell beyond measure and the price must finally be paid. Every bargain carries a price. For centuries, the world believed it could rise forever, higher profits, higher towers, higher faith in the machine. But every system built on belief eventually asks for proof. And when that proof fails, something breaks. In 1929, the whisper returned. A decade of roaring wealth collapsed in a single breath. Fortunes turned to dust. Dreams dissolved between the opening bell and the evening news. And the men who once shaped the world with pen and promise stood staring at windows they no longer wished to open. The crash was not just economic, it was spiritual. A collective confession. The belief that progress was infinite had met the reality of fear. Faith, once the engine, became the fault line. Governments blamed markets, markets blamed men, and men in their silence blamed themselves. Because deep down everyone knew the truth: you cannot borrow against eternity. Families lost homes, nations lost faith, and the world, desperate for salvation, turned once more to those who had written the rules. The bankers returned, promising order, but their order came at a cost. To rebuild, they created debt on a scale never seen before, a debt not of gold but of generations. Each solution sowed the next disaster, each rescue another chain. The bargain had entered its cruelest stage, the illusion of control. And so the century turned. Wars were fought, currencies died, and still the same machine kept moving, fueled by hope, powered by fear. The devil no longer needed to bargain, he simply collected. By the time the dust settled, the world had changed forever. Money had become faith itself, and like all faiths, it demanded sacrifice. The men who thought they had made the bargain realized too late. They were the collateral. But history does not end with ruin. It remembers, and remembering it begins again. Because some debts never die. They just wait for belief to return. From the ashes of collapse, a new generation of believers would rise, armed with machines, and faith reborn as data. When the dust of the old empires settled, the new ones were invisible. No more smokestacks or ledgers bound in leather, only light, flickering through screens faster than thought. The market no longer needed men in suits, it needed code. In the name of efficiency, we built systems that never slept. They learned to trade, to calculate, to react, to fear. Every algorithm was a reflection of its maker, ambitious, uncertain, afraid to lose, and soon the system began to mirror our own anxiety, magnifying it at the speed of light. It was supposed to save us from emotion, instead it perfected it. Computers did not panic, but they replicated panic, flawlessly. Every sell order became an echo, every rumor a chain reaction, fear digitized. In 1987, it happened again. One quiet Monday, the screens bled red. No armies, no speeches, just silence and numbers. The Dow fell 22% before anyone could ask why. The world called it Black Monday. But the whisper returned a different name: return on belief. The crash revealed the truth. We had built a God that thought in algorithms and prayed in transactions. It had no mercy, no memory, only rules. Rules written by men who thought they'd banished the curse. But curses evolve, they adapt, and when they return, they wear new faces. By 2008, belief had once again outrun reality. Banks collapsed, nations trembled, and screens, the temples of the new faith, glowed red around the world. The fear had become global, and the bargain complete. This time, no one needed to meet the devil. He was already online. Governments called it a crisis. The markets called it correction. But beneath the screens and headlines, something older was stirring again. The sense that we were not in control, that belief itself had become the trap. And still, every October, the hum returns, as if the machines remember something we forgot. It's not the numbers that haunt us, it's the reflection. Because the curse was never in the system, it was in us. Every system built by man begins as a mirror. We think we're building machines, empires, markets, but in truth, we're only recreating ourselves, our fears, our hunger, our faith. They all take shape in what we design. And when those designs turn against us, it isn't rebellion, it's reflection. The bargain was never signed in blood. It was signed in belief. Every time we said, "This time will be different." Every time we convinced ourselves that progress had no shadow. Every time we mistook wealth for wisdom and forgot that numbers only matter because people believe they do. That is the price of power, not damnation but dependence. A world that cannot function without faith in its own illusion. And so the cycle continues. Fear, collapse, recovery, belief. The eternal repayment of a debt no one remembers signing. We've built temples of glass, filled them with light, and called them progress. But deep beneath the circuits and the data, the oldest question still whispers, what would you give for everything? Some say the bargain is over, that humanity outgrew superstition, that data replaced desire. But others hear the hum. They see the pattern return. They know the contract was never broken, only renewed. Perhaps the curse was never about the devil at all. Perhaps it was about us, the endless hunger for more and the quiet terror of enough. Because the richest prayer ever spoken was also the simplest, let it last. And when it doesn't, the whisper begins again. In the next story, we'll follow that whisper to its source, where fortune meets faith and the bargain becomes prophecy.